Thank you very much, everyone, indeed, for joining us. We hope that this will be a useful session for you to hear a bit more about what we do and what we're up to, and have the chance for you to ask some questions of us. As I think you probably all know, we've just opened our autumn registrations for our autumn funding round at 12 o'clock today, and it's open for a week. So you've got a week to register your interest if you would like to. And hopefully what you hear that we tell you today might help with making that decision. So what we're going to do this afternoon is I'm just going to give a quick introduction into the Fore, who we are and why we exist, what our process is, and then I'm going to ask Poonam, who is one of our Strategic Applicant Consultants. So she works with people who apply to the Fore. Poonam is one of a pool of people who give their time to basically support charities and social enterprises through our application process, which is intended to, and the feedback we get is very helpful to them. So I'm going to interview Poonam a little bit, ask her a few questions about why she likes being involved and what the challenges are, and then have lots of time for you to all ask us any questions that you might have. So Poonam is with me and hopefully at the top of your screen alongside me, and as is Kelly, my colleague, who's our program assistant, who is somebody who you might end up coming across at some point, and she'll join us for the chat as well, the Q&As at the end as well, to help field some questions. So my name is Mary Rose Gunn, and I am the founder and the chief exec of the Fore. I set up the Fore in 2017 on the back of a 4-year pilot that we did under the umbrella of a small family trust. And the reason why I set it up was because we'd identified I had noticed that there was a real gap in the funding market, in that there was nowhere for people who were running small charities and social enterprises to go to get hold of the sort of investment type of funding that you need if you really want to change things. So there was lots of places to go for project funding, but there was nowhere to go if you had a really good idea and things were working and you wanted to scale it, or you wanted to try and make yourself more resilient or more sustainable. So many small charities and social enterprises were operating on a real kind of hand-to-mouth basis, and particularly charities that are working in more marginalized communities. It's really hard to get into the kind of tent of trust and foundation funding. So the idea was that we would offer unrestricted grants, which are all about helping charities and social enterprises make some kind of transformational change. So it's about investing in the organization to make it bigger or stronger or more resilient, and help it take a step forward. So it's not about business as usual funding. And it was also about giving these charities and social enterprises access to networks of skills, support and training that, again, you might not have, because every small charity that I came across when I was working for this foundation seemed to say, oh, it's not just about funding. It would be amazing to have a board member who was a lawyer, but we don't know anybody, or I need to do some financial modeling, but I'm not really a spreadsheet person and it all scares me a bit. I'd love to have somebody to help me with that. So the Fore is here to try and provide that kind of wraparound package of both unrestricted funding and skills support. And we are particularly trying to make sure that the support that we give is to people who aren't able to access, they haven't had that much success in getting onto the radar of the sort of bigger traditional trust and foundations, because you don't necessarily have access to fundraisers, because often the best charities with the best operations on the ground have been set up and are being run by people who, not surprisingly, don't have any experience of fundraising. So our whole process is, we hope, and our results, I think we're quite proud, they prove that it does work. We're not funding people who have got fundraising expertise necessarily. We're funding people who have got really great charities that are running on the ground. So our process is designed to be, we hope, really supportive and to add value. So it is something that it doesn't take you very much time. And if you get to a point where you are spending a bit of a time on it, it is time that you are feeling is useful because it's helping you in a broader sense as a charity. So it starts with registration, which takes a couple of minutes. It's basically just your contact details. And then this is something that we integrated in our last funding round. And it's because we were so inundated that our website was basically crashing when we'd open. Unfortunately, there still aren't very many people offering unrestricted funding. But you have a week to register, and then depending on how much money at the moment, this time funding round, we've got a certain number of places, which is dependent upon how much money we have managed to raise, because we raise every penny that we give away, and we are a small charity ourselves. So we really do empathize with everything that is tough about fundraising, but we have a certain number of places on the funding round, and those places will be allocated to registered people at random. We are constantly fundraising, and the intention and the aim is that we get to a point where we always have as many places as registrations. But I'm sorry, I apologize that we're not quite there yet, but we're working hard at it. But the process, if you get allocated a place on the funding round, you will then have about this time of year, I think it's about 4 or 5 weeks to compile an application document. This is maximum 3 pages. There aren't any specific questions. We just want to hear who you are, what you're doing, and why it's important. All of this information is on our website. We have all sorts of webinars and things, so please, you don't need to make any notes if you don't want to, but feel free if you do. We'll also be putting this onto the website so you can come back and watch it again if it's helpful. That application document, and we ask you to send your most recent accounts if you have them, and a couple of other questions you're asked, but very simple, straightforward stuff. That application is intended to be something that it is to sort of use the carrot of funding to help you get some time to think about your strategy and your future, and thinking about, how, if I were to have, the dream of up to £30,000 of unrestricted funding, how would I use it to make my organization stronger, more resilient, or have more impact in the long term? What is it that when you're lying in the bath, you're thinking, oh, if only we had money to spend that on that, it would make our lives so much better. It would mean we would be able to help so much more people, so many more people. What is that funding? What would that funding be able to unlock? So that is what's included in the 3 pages. And then the information about you as a charity, please copy and paste it from wherever you can. We don't want you to spend hours writing it. And it's a pitch for a meeting, basically. So it really doesn't matter if it's not perfect. We're not expecting, it's not an essay writing competition at all. So you then, for those selected, we are then invited, who are shortlisted, they are invited to have a session with one of our strategic applicant consultants, Poonam, who is one of them. You will hear a bit more about that in a minute. And then that's a meeting around what your challenges are, where you're trying to go, and it's about talking through what you're asking for funding for, and helping you really hone down and kind of kick the tires on, will it really be unlocking change for you? Where is it that you're trying to go? And the intention is that meeting in itself is going to be really valuable for you. It's an hour of time that we count as value we're adding to the charity sector, which is giving you a chance to talk through all your challenges and all your strategic direction, because all of our consultants have got minimum 10 years business experience, minimum 10 years strategic experience. They might have been in business, they might have run charities, but they are people who know stuff and have kind of been around the block a few times. So they've got really strong strategic advice to give. And then the consultant, if you are taken forward from those meetings, the consultant will be the one who writes up the funding ask. So we're sort of leveling the playing field, we hope, in that it's them that is writing the final funding application for you. They will do it in collaboration with you, so nothing will go into it that you're not comfortable with, but it will then go to a funding panel who are leaders of our existing charities that we're funding, sit on the funding panels alongside some of our corporate funding partners, and they make decisions based on objective impact criteria. So it's not about, is your cause better than another cause? It's about, where will the funding unlock the most benefit? So I am already being told that I'm over time, so I'm going to try and be a bit quicker. But one thing I just would like to say is we often get asked about how competitive it is. It is really, really competitive, and we're really sorry that it is so. But why we leave the process as it is to make it less competitive. We would have to start asking questions at the beginning of the process and basically putting hoops in. And we don't want to put hoops in because the very people that we want to get funding into, which are the amazing small charities, which I'm sure all of you are, but the ones who have lesser fundraising experience or lesser fundraising time more than anything, are the very ones that would end up being troubled by the hoops more than the ones with the experience. So in our experience, by making it really competitive, we actually are able to find the most sort of grassroots organizations that don't have access to lots of fundraising resource. So that's why we keep it like it is. But should you buy, is it worth your time? Well, registering takes 3 minutes, so yes. And applying, I would say it's not worth applying if you don't think that, if you think that spending an hour with someone like Poonam, and you'll hear a bit for in a minute, so you'll be able to make a better decision, that is going to be a waste of time. So if you think, yeah, I've got loads of people around me who can give me strategic advice, I know lots of senior business people, and we've applied before and we haven't been successful. If you think that, then don't apply. But if you think, having listened to Poonam in a few minutes, if you think having a chat with her would be useful, then it's worth it, because 1 in 3 get shortlisted to spend time with our consultants. And then the percentage after that, it depends on what how many charities each consultant has seen and how many they want to propose to go forward. So yeah, if you think it would be worth having a chat with someone like Poonam for an hour, I would suggest it's worth applying. If you don't think it would be worthwhile, then yes, it may be that it's not worth it. But right, we are, and also the moment that you apply and you're in the system, the moment that you register, you'll then get invited to take part in all of our workshops and all of the wraparound skills support that you can access through our website. So even it's just basically, it's worth it from the point of view of signing up to a mailing list, where we have a curated program of workshops and training seminars, which are always overbooked. So we are reasonably confident in saying they're pretty good. It's not us that run them, we curate them through partners. So we'll work with people who offer really good training programs for small charities. And there's also some slightly more esoteric stuff, which is people that we've met along the way who we think, gosh, we know lots of charities that would be interested in that. So we'll put on a workshop about it. For example, one of our previously funded charities, an amazing charity in East London called Cody Doc, did a lot of social prescribing, setting up a lot of social prescribing with some of the funding that we had given them. And they said, look, we'd love to pay it forward. Would you like us to talk to charities in your mailing list about social prescribing? And we said, yes, please. We'd love you to put on a workshop. So that will be coming at some point in the next 6 months. So yeah, stuff like that you might not get elsewhere. So hopefully it's just worth being on our mailing list. Anyway, right, Poonam, I am now going to grill Poonam and get her to give you a bit of an insight into why she is involved as a strategic applicant consultant and what she gets out of it. So just before I start asking her questions, just wanted to really highlight that all of the consultants who work with us are doing it basically on a sort of semi-voluntary basis. We pay a stipend, which is intended to cover any costs that they might have. And if they had childcare costs, or if somebody had caring responsibilities, it would cover somebody to come in and cover those costs so that they could be volunteer with us. But essentially, they are doing this because their motivation, all of our consultants, is that they really want to share things that they've learned in their careers. So I just wanted to make that really clear to you, because I think it helps to change the power dynamic, which is something that we as an organization are really keen to try and do, between that sort of horrible charities feeling like you have to come with a begging bowl. That is absolutely not what we are about. It is about trying to support and enable you through a process, even though, I am sorry, we are not able to fund very many, but we hope that everybody goes away having learned something. So Poonam, with all of that in mind, why did you get involved? Why are you a strategic applicant consultant for the Fore?
So first of all, thanks very much for having me with you today. It feels like a privilege to join this session, actually. And I also want to say thank you to everyone that's taken time out of their no doubt very busy diaries to take part. And I really hope that the insights and experience I share will be helpful to you. So in answer to your question, so I spent 20 odd years in various corporate organizations, using my skills in the pursuit of growth and profit, none of which brought me any soul satisfaction. And then at the start of 2020, I switched to the third sector. I work 3 days a week with a consultancy called 10 Years Time, and we work with funders and philanthropists, wealth holders of some form or another, that want to deeply understand the issues that matter to them so that they can use their wealth and other resources in more transformative ways. And to help me with that job, I felt that I need to know what that feels like. I need to take part in the process, have direct first-hand experience. And so that was my original motivation. But specifically, why I wanted to do that with the Fore was from many of the reasons that Mary Rose outlined earlier, in terms of the way that the Fore funds, their values are things that I advocate for, that I feel are best practice in the sector, such as the unrestricted core funding, the light touch application process, initially 3 pages, not reams and reams, and quite crucially, the role that we consultants play in the process, and the idea that that's intended to shift that power dynamic, which is quite hurtful to be on the receiving end of. So that was my original motivation. Since then, my motivation's changed because I get so much personal satisfaction out of the process and using my skills to be of service to organisations and individuals doing amazing work. When Mary Rose talked earlier about the assessors being there to support applicants, that feels very true. The feedback I've had consistently is that the skills that I've developed have a real value in this sector, and often applicants are having quite an isolated, lonely experience and really value that conversation and those different perspectives and benefiting from those skills, irrespective of whether they get the funding. So that's been my ongoing motivation, and it's a real joy to take part.
Thank you, Poonam. I feel very proud that you've said all of that. That's lovely. What I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about, for you, what are the biggest challenges of being a consultant?
So I've reflected on this a fair bit because, as Mary Rose said, we don't do this for the money, and it feels very challenging. So what keeps me going, and what are those challenges? I think the challenges are very much emotional for me. As Mary Rose said, it's a given. All of the organisations, the applications we received, are doing amazing work, and there's a real weight of responsibility that then comes with who do you take through to the next stage. On what basis are we making those decisions? So that there's a lot of real reflective thought that goes into the process for me, and that's emotionally takes its toll. Sometimes I have a lot of sleepless nights ahead of the panels. I have a lot of sleepless nights before the calls where I'm giving feedback. And I guess the way I overcome that challenge is to try and make sure every interaction I have is value add for people. So if it's at the first stage I can't take them through, and when I'm giving my written feedback, can the person see the basis of my decision? Equally, those that I might not be able to take through to the final stage, the decision-making panel, when I'm speaking to the person, seeing the whites of their eyes, albeit online, am I saying something that's going to be a value add and that doesn't leave them feeling as despondent? And yeah, that I have to say, the feedback I've consistently had is really positive in that regard. So yeah, that emotional challenge, I am finding ways to address it, but I think if I wasn't having sleepless nights, that would be slightly inhumane.
I think that is what Poonam said here is one of the things that I think all of our consultants would say is that, all of you who are here today will without doubt be doing incredibly important work and will be helping people and changing people's lives or changing the life of the planet in some way. And it is very, very difficult, but our consultants are making decisions based on a very strict objective basis on it's not about what causes they care about, it's about, you know, who has got potential to create more change than they are at the moment, you know, who's got the potential for this funding to really have an impact on their organization. So it is it's something, and it's something that they're, as consultants, their feet are held to the fire on this at the funding panels. So it is definitely, it's not easy, but it is also, it's reasonably objective, we hope. We have got lots of questions, so shall we start? And then Poonam, I think quite a few of them are going to be for you. So yeah, we'll start. But for the, I can very quickly do the first couple. So do you consider charities similar to those we funded before but cover a different geography? Very definitely yes. Please could we explain the random selection process? So after registration, it is literally, it's the computer does it. So if we have, you know, 700 registrations and 600 places, the computer just chooses who are the 600. It's not, and then those 600 will be emailed and invited, and the 100 who aren't included will be emailed and told, we're really sorry, this time around you haven't got a place on a funding round. Poonam, this one's for you. We would like some guidance on how to complete the financial table on the application form. We have a one-off high-level spend in our forecast for research, which we have already funded. 5 years of fundraising to raise the money. Congratulations, that sounds amazing that you've got that money. But the format of the table makes it appear that we're making a loss in the year that the spend takes place, which is very much not the case.
So I would say just add that in, add that context in, because it is one of the questions that we would ask. So make sure underneath your table that you've stated, like just pop an asterisk and explain that. It's also worth saying more broadly about the financial table that our role isn't to judge your targets, how ambitious or not they are. That's not what we're there for. What I'm personally seeking to do is understand the basis for those. So if you are projecting growth in your income, or if you're expecting to see that decline, just explain why that is and have a real confidence in the basis for which you are projecting your expenses and your income.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, that was me, calling from Ring 20. We did do that. We put an explanatory note in both of our applications saying we've already got this funding and this is what is actually in our bank account, but it still got rejected on the basis that we looked like a risk. So I'm not sure how else we could portray it, if you know what I mean.
I mean, it is competitive, but we'll put a note on Salesforce. We have a Salesforce system, so that the next time if you do apply again, that the consultant is aware of what you've just said and the question you've asked, and then they'll take that into account as they are.
Okay, thank you.
If that helps.
Thank you very much.
How important is it for you to see the scale and growth of an organization versus helping an organization build stronger foundations for what they offer right now? Because at the moment it is incredibly competitive and we are desperately trying to raise more money. I think we probably need to see a bit of both, really. I mean, if you are just going to be, I mean, if you can't demonstrate that there is potentially more demand, it's probably going to be harder for you to be successful in the longer term. But just because if you're up against, as a small charity, if you are up against somebody else who has got significant growth potential, and you're saying, oh, well, you know, we just need a lot of money to do something to say exactly the same, then it probably is going to be harder. But in an instance like this, potentially, if you put in a much lower funding ask, you are, you know, basically how much you ask for is going to be, because we've got a finite pot of cash, you know, if we could make 5 smaller grants to make 5 charities really much more sustainable in the long term versus one larger one to make, then, you know, you're more likely to get through, basically. So don't just ask for 30 or 29,999, which is what happens a lot, just because 30 is the maximum. Really think about the transformational change. So, because, you know, if you say, actually, for us to be able to do something really important, it really probably we could do it for £9,000. That is much more likely to get to a further stage than if you've said, oh, it's going to cost us £29,999 to do that. So I think that would be my advice on that one. Our charity have never had a CEO director. It's been service delivery staff. Would the Fore consider supporting a strategic move to fund someone actually to lead the organisation? Very definitely, yes. That's Kirsty from Keene. That's exactly a lot, or that's a lot of the sort of funding that we often offer. We're not able to fund very many. How many small charities might make the funding cut round in 2023? In our projections to the number of people that we'd like to fund, we're targeting this year, but I would really like to beat this, is 45. So, but that's our financial year this year. But, you know, we are doing I mean, I am a fundraiser like you are. I am trying to raise money. So, you know, it depends on how successful we are. But if we can raise more, we will. The moment that we raise money, we give it away. So yeah, we're doing what we can. This might sound silly, but if it's maximum of 3 pages, what size font is this based on? As in, if your thing is just over 3 pages, make the font size smaller. That's kind of like, we don't want you to, as for me as a fundraiser, there is nothing worse than word counts and character counts, because you're thinking, oh, I wrote this in 200 words last week, but you only want it in 150. I'm going to have to spend 3 hours making 200 words 150. Just make the font size a bit smaller. But, you know, seriously, if it's size 7 or 8, that's not going to be like, just don't cut out some paragraphs. But yeah. Beth is asking, we've applied before and struggled to show how the transformative the grant would be for us. Do you have any advice on how we should better present this? Poonam, this I feel is one for you. E.g., should we provide more quantitative projections rather than a narrative to explain how it will be transformative?
Yeah, I would echo Mary Rose's earlier response in probably a little bit of both. What I'd really encourage, though, is sometimes when I have conversations with applicants, I really feel that they're experiencing a pressure to say what the funder wants to hear. But please just take a step back and think intentionally about how would the funding be transformative for your organisation, and lead with that. So have your narrative in there. Why would this money help strengthen your organisation, unlock its potential, etc.? If you can then quantify that in some way, please add that in. So for example, I'll come across applications where people have said that we might provide a service to schools, for example, but I think there's an appetite amongst businesses and I think I can charge for that. And I've had X number of businesses approach me for my service, but I don't have the capacity to respond to that. So they're able to give a flavour of what that's looking like as a size of an opportunity, but also the need to increase the capacity, which then serves as a basis for their funding us to grow the capacity within the team. So if you can think about not only articulating in words, but quantifying in some way, I think that will just strengthen the application.
Thanks, Poonam. We've got a question around kicks. We definitely do fund kicks and around kicks and reserves. I didn't know that about us. Really interesting that you, because of paying tax, you don't want to keep reserves, but you can just mention that in the 3 pages. Just say underneath, put a little note underneath the financial table. Jay Bristow has asked, I have just taken on the role of CEO at a very small charity. We have no fundraiser, and I think this will make a massive difference to our charity. Would this be something you would fund? Yes, we definitely have funded fundraising posts in the past. Personally, from my personal experience, but you know, I'm not a consultant, so each consultant will have take a different, and we take everything very much on a case-by-case basis. But personally, and this is also backed up by my own experience of fundraising, is that often the best person to fundraise is very, you know, it's hard to find good fundraisers. So actually you might be better saying, I could bring somebody in instead to do more of the delivery or more admin, and then I would have time to do the fundraising myself. So, I mean, from a personal perspective, I think it can be really hard to find good fundraising people, and often you can end up spending money that gets wasted. So that, I mean, obviously each scenario is different, and some charities might say, oh, I've got the person, they've been doing some volunteering for us and they're amazing and they've managed to raise us money already, in which case that's going to be a very different scenario, but that would be my response to that, I think. We are seeking to build up paid for training across the UK. Part of the transformation is to secure our own future, but the training itself is transformative for separated parents. Which should I stress? Both, I think. Poonam, what would you say to that one?
Yeah, very much so. I'd say both. I think in terms of the basis upon which we would review your application is very much about the transformation for your organisation. But what I hear you're saying is the knock-on effect is we'll be able to deliver a better experience for beneficiaries or whatever that might look like. But yeah, we very much start with what's the transformation for your organisation. If there's a ripple effect on your beneficiaries or who you're seeking to support, add that in. Yeah, definitely.
Laura, would you like to ask a question?
Hi. Firstly, thank you. This is amazing, and it's just really, really refreshing for small charities to know that there's a funder who isn't going to make them spend 3 weeks on an application asking them for information they just don't have, only to reject it, and all that information, you know, it's all wasted. And yeah, really, I know everyone here really, really appreciates it. It's just so refreshing. I'm from a brand new charity. Our CEO literally stepped into post in February and I joined in May, and we've got a third person joining next week, which is exciting. So we're literally at the stage where we're looking at like the website and the CRM and the membership platforms and the stuff that is expensive, but it's just so vital, and we just don't have the funding for that, but we really need it before we can even start going out and delivering in some cases, because some of this stuff is really essential for what we're doing. Is that like, do you fund just software stuff?
We fund anything, is because, you know, different people need different stuff. So yes, there's no restrictions on what you can ask for. We have in the past funded CRM systems. We've in the past funded, we've pretty much funded anything. I mean, a lot of it is often, and it's not, and the funding is unrestricted in the sense that it's, you know, you don't have to report back on receipts or restricted in any way in your accounts. When it's what do we fund it, you know, you need to give us a clear idea of what it's going to unlock for you, basically.
Okay, so could we, I mean, that's really helpful. And could we ask, when we're submitting our application, can we say if we had this money, we would be able to do this and this and this and this, rather than just one thing?
Yes, definitely. But if it's too much of a laundry list, it just becomes a very compelling argument, basically. It's
okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Dan Flanagan, you have a hand.
Yes, please. Like all of us, I struggle with application processes, but I'm neurodivergent. Is there any additional support that you guys offer? Because even if it's just 3 pages and finance, for me, that's a hell of a additional challenge. We survive on pretty much volunteers. We have no paid staff. So is there any other resource that we can draw down on to help that?
Dan, that's a great question. Thank you so much for raising that. In a situation like this, what I would say is please just email us and let us know, and then we can talk to you about how we could proceed in a slightly different way with you about, you know, what you are, where you're at, and what you're needing, and hopefully get around what your needs in that way. Is that a
That's lovely, thank you.
Okay, yeah, no, so please do, yeah. And anyone with any sorts of issues around accessibility, please do, we really mean it. Just email us, email info box, and just say, please, could we have a conversation in another format, and tell us what sort of format would work best for you, whether it's a video call or a chat on the telephone, or, you know, and yeah, I mean, meeting face to face. We could do our best to try and get someone close to you. We have assessors all over the country, so hopefully, you know, we can work something out. Michael, McGrath and Lisa Holyhead. I think you're next.
Mary, hi, Poonam. Thank you so much to you both and to the Fore group for your amazing work. We're a small charity. It's always been the privilege of large, well-resourced charities to come up with an idea, a campaign idea, and then eventually execute it, and then it builds and it becomes an annual kind of thing and becomes a really important source of income for them. So as a small charity, we came up with an idea about 3 years ago, and we think it's a brilliant idea, and we've been finessing it and honing it and so on, to the point where we're not far away from pressing the button on it. And would you fund a role? Would you fund a campaign manager type role? Somebody who's got the skills, the talents, the gifts, the wherewithal.
We'll fund anything. So
You'll fund it? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Great, thank you.
apply away. Is it Lisa Holyhead?
Hi. The part of the reason I asked the silly question about the font size is I'm registered blind, and I would naturally write in size 24, which I appreciate for the rest of the world is hideously big. So I would just then shrink it back before I actually sent it in, so it's not a problem. But my question was, you mentioned about, wouldn't it be wonderful to have a lawyer as a trustee? Are you therefore saying you have a bank of people who are willing to be trustees with such qualifications?
Yeah.
Brilliant. And how do we go about grabbing them all?
You email our, is it Kelly? I should know this off by heart, but is it probono@thefore.org?
Yeah, and we also have a link on our website where you can actually submit a request to advertise any trustee vacancies that you have going on, and that's open to the wider charity sector, so not just charities that we've previously funded in the past. I can drop a link to that in the chat shortly if that would be helpful.
Brilliant, thank you.
And Lisa, also, if it's easier for you to leave the font size large, just again email us and let us know, and say, you know, we're in the process, this is our application number, because you'll get sent an, and then and we'd be happy to accept it 6 pages in size 24 if that's what's easier for you.
Cool, thank you.
I'll just quickly do a couple from the chat. Do we currently accept applications from organisations whose work is done overseas? Yes, we do. Everything has to be registered here, but it's absolutely fine if you're operating overseas. We're a largely volunteer-based organisation, and capacity staff time would be transformative to us, but just wondering if NGOs that don't have staff would be at a disadvantage. No. And is there a limit on how long you've been running? Nope. For example, do you prefer new charities? Nope. anyone is eligible. And Joe Vallis.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, my hand raising thing doesn't seem to be working. So.
Oh no, it is your little hands up there. But yeah.
All right. Oh, so it is. All right. No. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think somebody just answered my question. It was about equal opportunity for charities working abroad, and we're a small grassroots charity working in Zambia, and we're Scottish registered. I just wanted to check, you know, being Scottish and Zambian, are we equally?
The double whammy. Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine.
That's absolutely fine. We have equal opportunity to apply, assuming we're randomised.
Laura, that's a lovely question. Thank you. We're trying to influence others. We're really trying to encourage more unrestricted funding across the sector. It's sort of part of one of the things I would really love to be able to do more, how to spend more time shouting about. But like you know, we have to prioritize. Do we fundraise? Do we advocate? Do we do whatever? But yeah, it is part of my one of the things I'd really love to be able to spend more time on is trying to lead by example, because we hope that what we do is really supportive for you, rather than taking lots of time and then giving no answers. Our organisation is small. This is from Patricia Howell, and we have not been successful in fundraising for a while. We operate using the volunteers due to this. Can we still apply for essential costs? Yep, you can. But you know, as I said, this isn't really about business as usual. So if it's essential costs, but it's basically business as usual, then you're unlikely to get very far, I'm afraid, in the process. It has to be helping to make you stronger as an organisation in the short/longer term. And Julia Clifford, thank you. That's a lovely comment. And yes, there are Philip Drew.
Hello, everyone. I'm just interested to know what you sort of classify as a grassroots type charity, because obviously we've been running for a few years now, and I think I saw somewhere online that if you earned anywhere over 500,000 for the year, then you wouldn't necessarily be eligible. So I guess I'd be keen to see whether there are any sort of eligibility areas that we would need to look at and to be classed as a grassroots type charity.
That's the only one. Is your turnover in the previous financial year under £500,000?
Okay, brilliant. That's
and are you registered as a CIC or as a CIO or as a charity? Yeah. Somebody noted in the chat that they were a CIC and they've now converted to a CIO. We're hearing that actually from a lot of people, is that they register as a CIC, but then when you want to fundraise, you need to be registered as a charitable interest organization. So yeah, we're hearing, but we do fund CICs, so as well as CIOs, but it's interesting that we're hearing that a lot.
Wonderful, thank you.
And yes, there will be a link to this meeting that we will put on. We'll put the recording online. We have a YouTube channel. We're very excited. We're so modern, and we'll put it on our YouTube channel. But there will also be a link through the website. It is 3:45, and I believe that we were trying to wrap up at that point. So unless there's anything that anyone would like to add, Poonam, Kelly, is there anything that you'd like to?
Just go for it. Think it through. Be clear on what you want and what you need and why, for yourself more than anything else, I think. Yeah. And go for it. Yeah. And just we apologize in advance that we don't have funding for everybody, but yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And thank you so much. Oh, I just noticed Alice Adams, you have a hand up.
Sorry, just a really quick question. I've got draft annual accounts for April 22 to April 23. Shall I put in that annual income, or will you be checking against Companies House because they're not up on Companies House yet?
Yeah, that's probably the best one, because also by the time if you do get further on, they'll have, I assume, probably become audited. What's the opposite of draft? You know what I mean? So yeah, but yeah, you're not, nothing in those initial 3 pages is going, if there's a slight error in the numbers or something, that is not, we're not going to say, oh my goodness, we can't fund you because you said your income last year was 23,000 and it's actually 25,000. That will come out during the process. So don't worry too much about those 3 pages. We want to just get a general sense.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for the lovely comments that you've been making, and in the chat. We've really enjoyed this. It's a pleasure to see you all. Thank you for all of the work that you are doing on the ground. Goodness me, does this country and the world need you all more than ever at the moment. And yeah, we love the fact that we hopefully can do something to help you all in some way from our side of things. So yeah, thank you all so much for everything that you're doing. And thank you so much for giving up your time.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.